Well, thank you, Dr. Tovar and Dr. Ornelas, for your leadership in organizing and hosting today's community event, which is so important to the Latino community. Buenos dias, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I have the pleasure of representing California State University Northridge as the first Chicana Mexicana to serve as a member of the President's Cabinet. So I'm happy to be here today with all of you. And let me just start by acknowledging that would not have been possible without so many CSUN Chicano alum in this room today, including Doctora Tovar, who continue to work tirelessly to educate and help our advance educational opportunity in our community. If they weren't there fighting for the kinds of programs that helped me start my pathway in college, I wouldn't be here today. So thank you to all of you. How many of you are here with the CSUN alum? There we go, that's right. So, you know, when Audrey was sharing a little bit about her story, about how she found her way to higher education, and Dr. Ornelas asked me, well, you know, where did you go to school? I kind of paused because I have a very unusual start, stop. I've been to 2 four-year institutions, 2 community colleges, before I was able to complete my degree. And many of the policies that Audrey talked about, having the opportunity to hold our educational institutions accountable for how we define who is and who is not on a college pathway, right? When I was in school, those decisions were made for me. I did not have the opportunity to have access to an A through G curriculum, to even be advised or counseled that I had the talent to go to college. And so from day one, I was already on a different pathway because I grew up on the other side of the blocks. And that was the only determinant about my educational potential. And so having these policies, having access to the data, understanding you know, the structures is really important, because from day one, we're already defining the potential for our community. And many of our communities, 50% of our Latinos in California are represented in our K-12 schools. And then it just kind of, you know, reflected for me that I was a college student in the 1990s. I attended protests against Proposition 187, against Proposition 209, and I remember feeling that I did not belong where I was when I finally got there, because all of the policymakers that wanted to raise this agenda to keep students of color out of higher education won when they passed Proposition 209. And there was just this instant sense of feeling like so many people had fought so hard for a generation of Chicanos to be there, and then all of a sudden, poof, right? It felt like it was being taken away. And here we are again today, talking about that same feeling for all of our Latinos across the country. And when Audrey mentioned that now we have some practices and policies in place that allow graduating seniors to have to complete the FAFSA, I just think to myself, wow, had that been in place when I was a high school student, I would not have start, stop the way I did. Because what happened to me was, not having been on a college path, I didn't really have the qualifications to apply to a California State University system of higher education. Somebody intervened in my life at the last minute, last semester as a high school senior, and they helped me understand about programs that we have at CSUN, like the Educational Opportunity Program, that was there to help people like me, you know, prove to appeal the existing system to be able to gain access to educational opportunity. And I never thought that I would have that option, and I did, and I followed instructions and did what this person advised me to do, never ever thinking that I'd actually get in to California State University, Chico. And then one day I did. And then I had the real reality of having to tell my mom that I actually applied somewhere to college and got in. And she would not allow me to go to school. And so it was a very difficult decision that I had to make. I was 17 years old. I needed her permission to start in the EOP Summer Bridge program to gain admittance, because it was conditional upon completion, to Chico State, and she wouldn't sign the forms. And so I forged her signature, packed up my car, left her note, and I left. And when it didn't work out, I had hell to pay for it. It was not a fun year, and that was the year I started at Sac City Community College, and it didn't go very well for me. But the reason why I had to come back is because even though this person intervened in my life and moved heaven and earth for me to have an opportunity, we forgot about financial aid. And in many of our communities, not only is it a challenge to complete that form, but you need your parents' income taxes. You need to get a lot of things from your parents to make it possible to apply, of which I did not, including her permission to go to college to begin with. And so that was my first start and attempt. And it was bittersweet, because what we know about the kinds of programs like the Educational Opportunity Program is that it builds community for our gente. We see other people who look like us, who come from similar situations, immigrant parents, working poor families, first-generation college students, and it fills us with pride and confidence that we belong, that the folks who fought for us to have a spot and seat there, that we're there because we belong there. And despite all of the information we were getting during that time as college students with Proposition 187 and 209, that was the one place where I really began to see why making that choice was going to transform not just my life, but my mom's life, who worked 3 jobs well into her 70s as a single parent. And so these are the decisions that other people define for us when we don't have the kinds of policies and practices in place that really help us and encourage us to get us on the right track, to get access to information so that we can make decisions for ourselves as a community, as a family. And I'll have you know that after I came home, after I went away and came home and, had to deal with that relationship with my mom, I made it a point, and this was a defining moment in my career as an educational leader, when I finally transferred to Cal State Monterey Bay. When they first opened that campus, I was part of the first 500 students to attend. The first and only time that my family ever stepped foot on that campus was the day that I graduated. All of that, start, stop, transfer, get there, and they were never part of my experience. And for me, that was an important moment where I said, this can't be the way it is if we're going to encourage more gente from our communities to have access to educational opportunity in the state of California. They have to be part of that decision-making process early on, right? And so when later on in life, when I became a professional, one of the first things I did when I continued on to graduate studies was take my mom to class with me so that she could see for herself what it meant to be part of something that she never had the opportunity to be part of. And I'll never forget the day that I got asked to speak at my alma mater at Cal State Monterey Bay, and the president was speaking there, no disrespect to him at all. But my mom leaned over and she said, ¿Quién es ese hombre? Está tan aburrido. And they called my name, and I just was trying so hard not to laugh. And it was just one of those moments, right, where you just go, oh, wow, okay, but this is part of it, right? This is part of seeding the next generation, is having our families be part of events like these, of really understanding that, the college experience isn't, the day we graduate, right? It's that decision that we make together to get there, or the decision I made to be rebellious and say, nah, I got to get out. I got to do this, right? And it's not easy. You know, I worked 3 jobs as a college student. I had to stop out of Monterey Bay, go back to the community college and repair the damage I did the first year I attended there before I could even graduate. And so in the context of Proposition 209 and this recent Supreme Court decision, you know, there's a couple of things that I think, you know, we have hope for, and that is across the California State University system, the CSU, Latinos now comprise 45% of our total enrollment, and we award more than 44,000 bachelor's degrees to Latinos annually, right? That's almost half of all the students to attend the CSU. I mean, that's a big thing to celebrate in terms of what Alex, what Irene Tovar, what other folks, Ruben, with Beto, what they were fighting for, right, was that opportunity. And what that means in terms of California and our force as Latinos in California is that 62% of all bachelor's degrees earned by Latinos students in California are California State University degrees. And so we are a system that continues to be a pathway to educational opportunity in our state. And I share this because I think it's important to know that this decision to end affirmative action in our country comes at a time when we're seeing historical numbers of Latino students enrolling in higher education, not just in California, but increasingly in higher education throughout our country. And we know this because we know that there has been a significant increase. 571 institutions of higher education in our country are now designated Hispanic serving institutions. That means that they are minimally serving 25% Latino students. And that's a pretty big deal at a time when 50% of California's K-12 student population is Latino, right? So all of these things are happening at a time when we're seeing the diversification of higher education and the promise it holds for educational opportunity for our community. And at CSUN, we've seen these trends on our own campus. We've seen that the Latino student representation in 2013 was 42%, and it increased to 57% in 2022. So that's a significant increase in over a 10-year period. And Latino students became the majority population in 2017. And we've seen similar growth among our graduate student population, whereas 22% of all Latino students enrolled in our master's and our graduate studies program in 2013 were 22%. Now, as of 2022, we've seen 41% of Latinos who continue on to graduate studies at CSUN, which is a big deal. And I'm also really proud to share that CSUN ranks 3rd in the nation for awarding the largest number of bachelor's degrees to Latino students, and 24th in the country for the number of master's degrees granted to Latino students. That's in all of the country. So make no mistake, though, that this is a step backward for access to educational opportunity and for racial equity in higher education. And as we witness with Proposition 209, this action will harm Brown and Black communities in the admissions process and the college experience. What changed in California, as my colleagues shared, is that Proposition 209 only impacted public higher education institutions. And now the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action will have an impact on private institutions in California. And these institutions as a whole actually enroll more students than the University of California together. That's over 350,000 students in California that will now also be impacted. And it's also going to impact students who leave the state to pursue higher education. This is going to impact about 10% of California's college students who seek to attend a university elsewhere. And so as we think about the implications of Proposition 209, I think for us, probably some of the most deepest cuts and wounds that we still have to heal today was the over-interpretation and overreach of this policy beyond considering race, ethnicity, national origin, and sex in admission decisions, right? This expanded to professionals in higher education to really not want to talk about racial disparities, not want to share data on race and ethnicity, and many colleges started to dismantle programs that facilitated access, belonging, and really supported cultural identity. And so the implications of Prop 209 in the 1990s were those effects. It was chilling. We saw this happen at our institutions of higher education, but we also saw that this impacted our high school counselors. Many of them started deterring students of color from sharing their racial and ethnic identities and their lived experiences in college applications. And so I think for us, some of the fears that we have is how this is going to impact Latino and Black students in terms of their actions, their access to higher education in California. But also, we don't want it to take us back to a 1990s mindset. We want to make sure that we continue to do the types of practices, to review the types of policies we need to look at to ensure that there is not an over-regulation and overreach and interpretation of this decision to end affirmative action in our country. And the good news is really that we have been navigating this ban in California for more than 20 years. And with time, we've gotten really good at leveraging all of our tools beyond the admissions processes to continue to diversify our student body. And so there's a lot of examples of how I'm sure Los Angeles Mission College and CSUN have really tried to overcome some of the negative impacts of this proposition in our state, and will continue to do so very vigilantly in terms of the implications of this recent decision to end affirmative action. And so as Audrey shared, we've done a lot of things like strengthen our transfer pathways across our institutions, really embrace our identity as a Hispanic serving institution, look at how we are doing away with entrance exams like SATs, ACTs that we know have historically kept Brown and Black communities out of our institutions of higher education, and we continue to double down on our commitment to make sure that our access, outreach programs, and our identity-based resources that support belonging and success in higher education are there for this generation and the next generation of Chicanos and Latinos who are entering our state institutions of higher education. And so with that, I got the hook that I only have 1 minute, but I want to say that it's a little too early to know what the immediate and the long-term impacts are going to be of this decision, but events like today are so important because when we hear from you and how this is affecting you personally, it allows us to shape very intentionally the kinds of programs we need for Latinos and other students of color to make sure that you can continue to achieve success and belonging, whether that's at CSUN or any institution that you want to attend here or in the state of California. And I think that's a real important thing, is we cannot just say that, well, it happened here, so it's not going to impact us, right? We don't know how it's going to impact us, but you're going to tell us, and we're going to learn from you what we need to do to be better and to change and to navigate yet again this very unfortunate reality of racist policies in our country.